Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Drinks and Daves for the 29th of October. We're calling it our pre-Halloweeny show, I guess.
Halloweeny.
Well, Halloween, whatever the
Do you
case may
are
be.
you're working on Halloween, right?
Yeah, but
You dress up? No.
no, no. Yeah, yes,
The barber of
I
Seville.
dress up as a barber. So,
Ah.
welcome to all the barflies. It's a big crowd tonight.
No, I'll save PB's comment for when we get into the topic. He's coming
Well,
in
we're
hot.
making it a family affair tonight. I see Linda's here and
That's
Dave's
right.
here and everything else.
We ought to vote on something. We got 60% of the voting.
Well, yeah, especially after the movie I saw last night. Yes. What are you drinking tonight?
You know what I'm drinking, Dave?
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking these, Dave.
I almost blew a quesadilla out my nose.
Ooh, spicy. I
Are
was like,
you,
every time I open, we have this one drawer that's got spices and stuff, and for some reason has accumulated little bottles of alcohol, and I'm like, why don't I work on getting rid of those?
Well, you
So
know what you need to do is have,
Start-
yeah. Oh God,
Start with Screwball.
Whoa. Just to have Pantea in the background going, sir, our in-flight movie is so and so, and would you like a drink? And then, oh wait a minute, she could make some money. You could figure out how many bottles you got there, charge them $4 a crack.
Oh,
Get your wallet out, buddy.
$4. Aren't they $12 on the plane?
I don't know. I don't drink on the plane. So.
I don't know. I get them for free.
Oh well, excuse me.
And you're not even smoking. You're just
Yeah, I am.
eating tacos and okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. It was a quick dinner before the show, and I guess I should say, and I'll make this announcement again at the end of the show. We are moving, ladies and gentlemen. We are moving because, as you know, on November 3rd, everybody everywhere else in the world or in the United States uses this stupid concept called daylight savings time. Those of us in Arizona are too stupid to change our watches back, and we don't get extra sleep or no sleep or whatever the case may be. So, for that reason, we are going to be moving to 5 p.m. Pacific, which will still be 6 o'clock showtime here.
That confuses everybody but you.
No, what I'm saying is our program is going to be 6 o'clock because that's what it says.
I think it says based on whatever time zone people are in.
No, what I'm saying is, yeah, but when we set it up, though, our main program is Mountain Standard Time. So that's okay. It's still, we're going to say 5 p.m. Pacific. And the rest of you can figure it out. But it'll be on Monday nights. Monday nights, not Tuesday nights. Monday nights.
Yeah.
So please make a note of that.
Originally, we thought Monday would be the best. There was reasons. Then why we thought we'd get a bigger audience on Tuesday by the count of 5 barflies. I don't think that's true. So we're switching to Monday.
And we'll have 150,000 next week.
Probably. Most likely.
So anyhow, yes, I am finishing up because it was finally in Arizona. We cracked the ice on the Santa Cruz River is forming again. So we were 71 degrees today, which was beautiful out on the patio. So I was able to smoke a couple of cigarettes. Hello, Pantea. I'm glad you're feeling so much better, even though I know you're not, but I had to say that. And I apologize in public for the fact that my wife rickrolled you.
She did, yeah.
But yes, I am smoking. I'm finishing up a Padron.
Oh, tiny.
And then I'm going to, if we have time, I'm going to smoke another Padron, but a Connecticut, the Damasco. I think this is the best Connecticut cigar made, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then I'm drinking Pepsi.
PB, Kentucky Pumpkin Barrel Ale. How appropriate. How appropriate. Yeah. Yeah, this this is the Screwball. We used to hear about it all the time. It's not the worst thing in the world, and it's sweet, so it makes it kind of easy to go down. But now it's all about Fireball. I think it got taken over by Fireball.
My better half likes Fireball. In fact, so much so that we have like a 14-gallon bottle down here somewhere.
Does she mix it with anything?
No, I don't think so.
No, just straight up.
I can't even smell it.
I mean, you used to see this stuff all over the place. Now you see Fireball all over the place. So
I can't even I can't even smell Fireball without getting irpish.
I see.
So
I got the AVO Classic number 2 going.
good stuff. So I changed this to say what, according to my wife, it's supposed to say: eat your cake and have it too.
That's the saying.
That's yes, from an engineer
I see.
standpoint, that's what it should say. So I have to put that on there, or I'll get killed.
But it's not what it should say. It should be what is the traditional saying.
Yeah, but that
Because she could be saying the traditional saying is wrong.
Oh, she
which
does
is
say that.
likely. Well, she does. And
She
you
does
know,
say
I
that.
don't even know what it means. I mean, it's like, I know you can't have it both ways, but have your cake and eat it too. Seems like if you're going to eat it, you would have it. So it seems logical.
Well, see, and my argument was: you eat your cake, you regurgitate your cake, you still got your cake, or if it's in your stomach, you still have your cake. It doesn't exit you until much. Well, we won't even go into that. But
Yeah, but I don't think that's what it was all about. Anyway.
But that leads us to your decision for a topic.
Yeah. And you know, we'll see how this goes, because every time I think, hey, this would be something good to talk about, and then we both agree, I'm like, okay, well, that's a 5-minute discussion then.
Well, I
But-
know that behind the scenes in our production meeting, David told me what the subject was, and I went off on a diatribe saying, "Yeah, what about this? What about this?" And then the final sentence was, "Well, you're agreeing with me. That's not what was supposed to happen." But before we get that started, I got to tell you, and we talked about this. I am a big fan. It doesn't matter whether you're Catholic or not. You have to go see Conclave. You have to see it. As a Catholic, I thought it was the most refreshing thing that the Catholic Church or the movies did portraying the Catholic Church ever. It was fantastic. Fantastic. If it doesn't get Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Female Supporting Actor, I would be very surprised.
Man, you're
It's
passionate.
I am, and it's long.
full
It's
of
like
passion tonight.
3 hour, like almost 3
What?
hours.
What?
Yeah, it's a long movie,
Sweet mercy.
but it's great. It's great.
Wow, you can watch that and then Ben-Hur. Wasn't Ben-Hur like 3 hours?
I think that was like closer to 4. Well, if you're going to do that, you got to watch Ben-Hur, then Soylent Green. You know, all the big, the 10 Commandments, all the big Charlton Heston epic movies.
Oh, with Soylent Green. But I was just thinking of something that's super long.
Dances with Wolves.
Was that one long?
Yeah. Well, anything Kevin Costner has almost breaks the 4 hour mark.
He can't see himself on the cutting room floor. That's the problem. Yeah.
Very, very true.
You well, no. So I was thinking. I'm sure you know. There's something that strikes everybody like this from time to time, anyway. And for some reason, I was just fired up about it, maybe because we're in deep into election season, stuff like that. But my frustration comes when people want something to be a certain way and then they don't want the ramifications of that. And the thing that triggered this is hearing everybody talking about the high cost of food. And I know, and I'm not talking, and I know it's all about grocery store and my bills and all this and that, but you know, around here especially, the fast food minimum wage has increased something crazy. You can go, and I think In-N-Out Burger starting at $19 an hour.
Here they're making 22.
Are they? Okay. So same, right? So, but then people are saying, well, geez, it cost me as much going out to get a burger for my family as a sit down restaurant. Thinking
Okay.
and it's like, well,
Well,
you know,
and
if we're
I
going to
think-
vote for this minimum wage to go up,
Right.
where do you think that money comes from?
Well,
And you
I
can't
think
complain when that happens.
Well, I think the reason why the complaints are coming from is, think about it, our generation and maybe the generation in front of us, and to some extent the generation behind us, when we made $2.90 an hour or $1.65 an hour, our mentality was different. Our mentality was, hey, you got a job. Okay. And I think now, and I think we believed, and maybe we were told, that these minimum wage jobs were a stepping stone to schooling, career, and stuff like that. And I think the whole shift has been that people want a living wage, which means that in my mind, when I hear that, I hear, okay, that means that you're going to spend 20 years at In-N-Out Burger at $25 an hour? No. But to address what you said, yeah, if you go from paying somebody $10 an hour, which I remember when that's what In-N-Out Burger made, and it goes up to $23 or $18 or whatever, well, of course the business is going to pass that along to you. They're there to make money. And so I agree with you. Now, have I bitched about going to McDonald's and paying $35? Sure. Do I understand it? Yeah. But it's my choice to go. So I can't
Right.
bitch about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it almost seems like it was subsidized. If you could get a burger for $1.99, knowing that the burger was probably made and frozen across country and shipped here, and the buns and the condiments and all, and the labor for you to be able then to unwrap it for $1.99, there's no way that it only costs. But
Well, think about it. Most people would not consider, and this is where I believe getting into certain businesses where QT and Circle K were genius because nobody ever went to Circle K or QT to buy food. Unless it was a snack just to grab. Now you can go to Circle K and get a pretty good burger for $2.99. So I think that whole switch is happening because even QT says, if you ask them, are you a convenience store? They say, no, we're a food place. We're going after the fast food places, and they're doing it. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But I agree with you. I think that people think that, well, I should still be able to get a Big Mac for $1.49. Well, that's like saying I should be able to go out and buy a brand new car for $7,000.
yeah.
Ain't happening.
Well, and so I do want to say, and I think people do not say this nearly enough anymore, is that I don't understand economics almost at all, right? So the whole, I know that there's this, also this issue with people have to be able to support themselves and live, and not everybody has an education. And so there's that whole thing out there. And so I'm not talking about,
Right.
okay, they shouldn't get paid $22 an hour. I'm just saying, okay,
Right.
they are. So now don't complain. That's the whole theme, is that, okay, this is happening. So don't complain about the consequences of that. So,
Well, and really it comes down to choice. I mean, you can't, if you want to go out and eat every night of the week, that's your prerogative. Go ahead. But you can't complain when you're spending $40 a pop. And P-Beat says you can't have it both ways. If you're going to blame me for breaking the Beatles up, you should be thankful that I made them into a myth rather than a crumbling group. Yoko Ono.
perfect example.
Well, but I being a Beatles fan and watching the Beatles documentary, Yoko Ono broke up that band flat out. When she's eating Cheetos and crunching right in front of them while they're trying to rehearse, and then leaning over to her husband and saying, "Oh, eat this Cheeto," and they're trying to write songs.
What?
Yeah, no. Well, watch
Okay, wait. Okay, so this is off the track, but we have to discuss this. But because isn't John Lennon an adult, and he could have said, "Hey, we don't need this distraction. You can't be here."
Well, yeah, but that old adage of happy wife, happy life probably enters into
I'm
that.
just saying that they both then played the part of it breaking up.
Oh, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Okay, well, so but my examples were not just fast food. So
Right.
something else that comes up would be medical care, right? Is that, people say our medical care costs way too much compared to the rest of the world. Our medical costs way too much. And yet we just passed a law, or I don't know who did, but in California, there's now a minimum wage specific to medical workers, and it's not the providers, it's people that support it. So the person who's cleaning the floor now has a higher minimum wage if they work in a hospital than if they work in a business park, right?
Right.
I don't understand the reasoning behind that, but where do you think that money comes from?
Sure.
Right. And then, we talked very briefly when we were talking about doing this as a topic, is the people that are fighting for the higher wages outside of that, You've got people in automobile plants that are wanting double-digit wage increases, and it's like, okay, so what happens if you get that? What happens to that company? Then do they have to? I mean,
Well, the
where do you
argument,
think that money comes from?
well, the argument has always been that okay, I'm an auto worker and I deserve $100 an hour because I build the car that you drive, and the executives that are making millions should be, should have their wages cut. Well, that's like the face value of it. But what people don't realize is that executive, whomever they may, probably worked their tail off to get where they're at. And do they deserve that kind of money? Well, you could get into the argument about why does a professional football player make more than our president? Who cares? That has nothing to do with it. But getting back to the health thing real quick, and this is something I know from the insurance standpoint, is that a law was passed, and this is weird because I agree with the fact that nobody should be denied medical coverage based on pre-existing condition. I believe that. I do believe it. The problem is if you have to go way back to when we started the health program. The reason why all these other countries like Singapore and stuff like that can subsidize their population is because they started it that way. We can't go through the door. We can't go backwards because it would fall apart completely. But where it gets into it is if, okay, so let's say I'm a health insurance company. And of course, they get beat upon all the time. And before, I would have a set of qualifications that you would have to meet to gain insurance, and you would pay accordingly for that.
Yeah.
Well, the law was passed that no pre-existing conditions can be denied. Well, from a risk standpoint, if you have cancer or you have diabetes even, or you have some type of chronic illness that is going to cost me the insurance company more to treat you over time, then of course what's going to happen? I'm raising rates because we still have to be solvent. And I think that's where people get lost is I hate it because I remember when insurance was $50 out of your paycheck. Now it's $950 a month. For some plans. So I get it. I get why people are frustrated, but you got to understand the steps, and you hit the nail right on the head. Where is that money coming from? It's not, I think some people get this, and I don't want to insult anybody, but I think people get this idea that money literally grows on trees. That so these executives can afford to do all this. Well, maybe they can, maybe they can't, but that's not the point. The cost of goods is never going to go backwards.
Well, and in the fact, so that you can't have it all. This is a perfect thing. Is that when we went to try to do universal health care, right? Because that is the one model, given what's already in place, it would be least expensive, right? Is everybody gets coverage.
Exactly.
And because you do have to, the healthy people do have to subsidize the sick people, just like in the insurance industry, right? Like I don't have car accidents, but my premiums go to pay for the accident somebody else is having. And someday I might cash in on that too, right?
Right.
But to change our system to do that would be painful for a while, right? Because it would disrupt everything. And people that have insurance that they like are saying, I don't want that to happen. But I want everything to be covered, and I don't want to wait. And that's the whole well, you're making choices that don't allow that to happen.
Well, and a perfect example is that the people that legislate and make the rules regarding healthcare, if you get into the government side of things, there's 512 people that make those decisions that have absolutely the best healthcare known to man. So when they're trying to legislate for the rest of us, they don't understand what it's like to have to pay $900 a month, or to have to go through, the HMO system or even the PPO system, where you have people making decisions. And you know this, some of the people making your medical decisions are not even doctors.
Well,
and
that's a whole in our current system.
Right.
If you go under the universal healthcare, that's not the case.
Right.
And so that's that. But to your point, yes. And it would never happen. But if all the people that voted for them said, I want this healthcare system that was explained to me and would cover everybody, and yes, it will be painful for 10 years, but we want it, they would do it. But they're not. They're saying, leave me alone.
Right. And,
Right.
and what you said right there was probably the solution is say, ladies and gentlemen of our country, the next 20 years in healthcare are going to be very painful. But when we come out of this at the other end, there's nothing that won't be covered. But like you said, the people that have the power to say that and to do that are really us. But we'd have to vote out everybody for that plan to work. And I think that it's a valid plan. I mean, I really, really do. Because like now granted, Singapore's smaller than Tucson for a whole country, but they're taken care of from the day they're born to the day they die. And not only just in healthcare, when they reach retirement age, their housing is free. Everything's free because they figure you've worked long enough, you've put long. Now, the taxes in Singapore are crazy, but that's not the point. They started it that way. And the only way we could go back to that would be extremely painful. I agree with you 100%. Is it worth the pain? Well, when I look at the fact that it cost me $950 a month for insurance, yeah, I think it's worth the pain. You know, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and as a self-employed person, that's you would think that as a self-employed person that they would have affinity groups or stuff like that would keep our health insurance low. But speaking of where the government screws up sometimes is, for instance, when Sharon was working, I was on her plan, you know, because she had a corporate plan. Well, when she retired, I came off of that plan. We tried to look at keeping me on it, but it was amazing how it was like, I don't know, a couple $100 a month when she was working. But soon as she stopped working and retired, now all of a sudden, and nothing had changed for me, it was going to be an additional $750 a month. Well, somebody's pocketing that crap. But
well, that's not her company was paying that,
right? And I get that. But when you look at like now on the Affordable Care Act, so last year I looked at getting in on the Affordable Care Act. Based on my income and everything else, I qualified for subsidy. It was going to be $73 a month. I was excited. Now, granted, it was a pretty high deductible health plan and stuff like that. But then, speaking to the insurance actuary, I was like, well, wait a minute. We need to include your wife's income. I said, well, she's retired. Doesn't matter. It went from $73 a month to $950 a month because we had to include her. But once she's on Medicare, which is years away, once she's on Medicare, then I can pull that income off, and then I get the $73 a month.
Well, something to look forward to, I guess. All right, I got another one.
Okay.
People complain about the price of gas all the time. And again, I will do the caveat of I don't understand much of what happens in the world politics of oil production and
goody, I can explain that to you.
All that stuff. But I do know that I would bet a chunk of those people also bitch about electric cars and why are we paying for solar panels and wind farms and all this shit, that they don't want to support things that, that there's not an unlimited supply of oil. I know that. I know because of that, it gets more expensive to access because we took all the easy stuff, right? So you got to dig deeper and go other places where it's harder to get to and all that stuff that raises the cost, right? So if you want cheaper mobility, then stop bitching about all the other stuff we're trying to do to get us off gas.
Well, here's a very interesting story. One of my clients at the barbershop is a retired VP for Exxon. And so one day we were talking and this whole subject came up. I said, I'm not going to buy into the fact that when somebody was president, they were lower prices because of him. Bullshit. Pardon my French.
Right. They can't just say,
hope I don't get bleeped for that. No. So, and bringing fuel costs and everything into the whole political thing. Yeah. So he explained to me and he looked at me and he goes, I don't want you to cut me with your razor. I said, okay. I said, why? He goes, gas should be 50 cents a gallon. And I literally went, excuse me? He goes, let me explain something to you. We have more oil in our country that's accessible than any place in the world. So my obvious question was, why aren't we using it? He goes, stability in the Middle East. And I said, okay, explain that. He goes, we pay, let's say the reason why we pay, well, now it's higher, but let's use when we were paying $90 a barrel for gas. The actual cost of that barrel of gas was probably around $25, $30. But we have to support the Saudi government and the stability in the Middle East by paying an extra amount of money so they have the infrastructure. Well, we pay $90 a gallon, then that goes to a broker. Well, the broker's got to make a few bucks, so he's going to charge $1.30 a gallon or $130 a barrel. Then it goes to another broker. He goes, so by the time you're done, you're paying $180 a barrel.
Yeah,
then you have to refine it. And so he brought this up, I guess, at a meeting when he was a lower level manager and almost got fired. He goes, wait a minute, the math doesn't make sense. And he goes, there are so many hidden costs in that barrel of oil. And so like you said, when people complain about gas, and don't get me wrong, everybody that has a gas vehicle is complaining about gas prices, but there is a reason for that. And to enjoy the cars that we drive, the big SUVs, the hot rods, the Corvettes, it's either that or have the entire Middle East become unstable, and then we're a Pop-Tart. And so what worries me about some of the alternative fuels is that at some point in time, the gas, the fuel companies, Exxon, Mobil, Sonoco, and all that, they're going to realize that that's where the future is trending. Well, what they're going to do is they have unlimited pocket money. They're going to buy the infrastructure. They'll buy it. And once they buy it, guess what happens? All the electric costs and everything that we're trying to do to keep costs down is going to go up based on profit. They want to make profit.
So that brings me to another thing I've been thinking about in terms of frustration around the whole gas issue is just what you said, is that people will blame, as it's convenient, whoever is sitting in the White House, right? Which, as you mentioned, is ridiculous because however, if whoever's there decided, okay, we're going to cut the price of gas in half, they couldn't do it. It's not up to that one person.
Right.
But they always blame that person. And we hear the price of gas is going up, and yet these companies are making record profits. And people aren't up in arms, or at least not in the masses, blaming the companies. I mean, we hear about it, about the president or whoever's running or whatever. Why aren't they screaming about these companies being brought under control? Right?
Well, I think the reason for that is, and it's somewhat our fault. They know that you got to go to work every day. They know that your 20-year-old vehicle that eats gas is all you can afford. You can't go out and afford a Tesla, or you can't go out and afford a Volt or whatever electric vehicle there is. And so that's what in my opinion, that's what they would do. If the president, whomever that may be, says, I want gas prices to be 50 cents a gallon, the companies are going to look at him and say, okay, we'll see in a few years. It's not going to happen. And, let me dovetail back to the wind issue, because people are complaining about, and one of the largest arguments about wind power is from these same petroleum people. They say, wait a minute, you're going to put up that big old wind turbine. It's huge. But what lubricates those motors? Petroleum products. Well, yeah, of course it does. So are we ever going to be off petroleum entirely? As a fuel source, maybe. As a lubricant or other things, no, unless they come up with something synthetic. But people say, nobody makes any money off those wind farms. Well, I found out from a client whose grandmother has a farm in Iowa. And the farming, and that's a whole nother subject if we get into farming. Farmers aren't growing stuff for us anymore. They're growing it for export. And a lot of that's by governmental mandate. So this lady was approached, and she leased out 47 acres to this wind farm company. They put, I think, 10 or 12 wind farms up. They pay her $22,000 a month per wind farm, or per wind. So she overnight she became a multimillionaire, and she grows a little bit of soy, and the rest of it's wind. So anybody who says there's no money in wind, there is.
Well, in my point would be, who gives a crap? Because all of this, like, so there's also the people that are just against change, right? Or like, I'm in that industry, so I don't want it to go away.
Right.
And that's the like the coal miners, right? Or like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if we stop using this coal because it's dirty and killing people, and we say you can't burn it anymore, but I'm going to lose my job. It's like, yeah, well, and so did the people that went around lighting the gas lanterns outside the houses, or all the,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it sucks again in the transition period, but you can't stop progress. That's not a reason for keeping things going.
Right.
And
Well, I mean, do I think, and maybe this comes from my love of science fiction and everything else, that do I think at some point we will be that our highways will be in the air? Yeah, I do. And do I think that they will be electric powered drones? I mean, just a large version of a drone that'll be electric. Sure, I do. Or when they can make a solar panel that will be strong enough to absorb enough power to make the car go at speeds. And I know that your dad is looking at that car we talked about. Then that's going to change everything, especially like out here in the Southwest. I mean, 300 plus days of sun a year. In fact, Sharon had been talking about a solar powered car forever. Well, now they're finally starting to engineer the roof of your car to be one huge solar panel.
right.
Do I
And
think
could
that'll
you
happen?
imagine
Sure.
people saying, we don't want those because everybody that owns gas stations are going to lose their businesses? Well,
Yeah. How
how
well,
we start selling solar cars? I know it's not that
exactly.
easy, but
No, I know.
I'll put up what PB says
Yeah, I
here.
was just
'Cause
going to
we
say.
want the interaction.
Go ahead.
But and he's saying that presidents can't set the prices, but they can increase domestic oil or domestic energy output, manage domestic oil and gas reserves, change fuel export rules, or encourage production of more efficient. And I would say yes, but to a point,
Because
right?
Congress and Senate have to ratify
Yes,
it. Right.
right. And I always remember, we had a lovely governor who played the Terminator at one point, who, as when he went into office, one of the early things he said was, I had all of these plans, and when I got there, I couldn't get anything done because
Well,
nobody would vote on it.
I'm going to put this up and then I want to address what you just said. So Tigley says solar panel tech is held at 20% of capable energy because it would be too cheap and patents are withheld. True, because would going to solar panel tech to where it would replace or at least get rid of a lot of fossil fuels and everything, yeah, it would cause a disruption in our economy. Why? Because we've built everything around petroleum. That's the problem.
I would
mean,
have to
what
see
I'm
more
saying,
about that, because if Elon could produce solar panels that would, outproduce everybody else and make another $1 trillion, he would do it.
I think he's
Right,
probably
he would.
looking. Well, he's going after Apple right now, right? With the phone, the Tesla phone, and
I've
and the
heard of
thing,
the Tesla phone for a long. He's like a squirrel though. He'll say, "I'm going to do this," and it sounds great, and then he's working on AI right now, and
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the tunnel that'll take me from here to Vegas.
Well, there is. Well, you can go around Vegas in the tunnel.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, a couple of miles.
they're
But
working on that.
no, I think that I think what you're saying is absolutely true. And I think we have to look at wind and electric and stuff like that. And people are saying, "Well, I can't drive like in Arizona. I can drive my Tesla from all over town and be fine." But if I want to drive across some of the empty regions of Arizona, it's real tough to get to a certain spot. Yeah, that is the pain of the transition.
Well,
To me, that's the pain. It's going to
right,
take a while for all that infrastructure to come in.
right. So today they shouldn't buy one, but don't poo-poo them and say they're terrible and we shouldn't
Right.
subsidize.
Right.
I
Well,
got two more. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, just to finish up what
Yeah.
you said about. So, to me, when all this vitriol is going on, and we're not going to get into a political discussion, but all the vitriol that's going on with the election, and person A and person B says this, and person B says this about person A, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, in my opinion, who is sitting in the White House. What matters is the people, because, like you said, the president can come and say, I want to do this, 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 and this. And if the political party in charge of the Senate and House don't agree with that, guess what? It goes up in smoke. So we have no progress towards those goals that you were talking about.
Well, and and I'm not a political
Right.
activist, I'm a political inactivist, so I'm part of the problem. But to that point, it's our fault because
Mm-hmm.
if we were all writing and calling and all this stuff pissed off and say, I want this passed,
Mm-hmm.
but right now everybody's vote party lines and nothing can happen. So just in case you're keeping track, I finished off a Jameson Irish whiskey. Where is it? I can't.
Yeah.
I got the ghostly.
Well,
and
wait
we're
a minute. What
moving-
happened to the screwball? Did you
Oh, that's
finish that
gone.
already? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're moving on to Hennessy cognac now. I got the nice cornucopia going on.
And by the end of the night, Dave will be going.
All right, so I have two more topics around this.
Okay.
One again, cycling back to the complaints about food. If you complain about food costs and yet don't want any immigrants in this country, you're part of the problem because you're not going to go pick that stuff, right? They take the jobs that are hard, low-paying jobs that produce the food at low wages. And if we had to pay our high school kids to go do it, we just said they can get paid $19-22 at In-N-Out. If they're getting paid $22 to pick your lettuce, you think that head of lettuce is going to cost you 99 cents?
Right.
Hell no.
Well, and the only caveat to that I would say is as long as these immigrants want to come in the country legally. Now, that being said, like you said, the ones that want to come in legally want the American dream. They want the 40, 50, 60 bucks an hour. I get that. So if we're going to have the immigrants that are going to come in and do the menial, for lack of a better term, the menial tasks for $8 to $10 an hour, or most of the time, I think migrant workers get paid on piecemeal, meaning you have 60 bushels, you got to do 60 bushels, and this is what you get
And
paid.
they work their asses off.
They do. And and quite frankly, California's population, especially their Hispanic population, that's why California exists. I mean, because of the migrant workers. But that being said, I do not believe in illegal immigration, but there has to be a pathway built. And I haven't heard.
Well, I guess I'm referring to when I hear they're taking our jobs, the illegal immigrants. I'm sorry, the uneducated illegal immigrant. What job are they taking? They're picking your freaking lettuce. They're not
Right.
going to Harvard and
Right.
taking your job on the Tesla assembly line.
Right. But see,
That's
what
what
I'm
you can
thinking, well, what I'm thinking is, everybody's talking about a path to citizenship. Well, my feeling is, and this is going to piss off a lot of my conservative friends. And being a conservative, I'm definitely more moderate than the far right. But what I would say is, okay, if you're an immigrant that came here illegally within a period of time, what that period of time is, I don't know, and you have worked in one of these jobs, picking lettuce, picking cotton, I don't care what it is. There has to be a way to take, how right now, if you go and let's say you want your PhD, okay, let's just use that. You want your PhD, they're going to take your life experience, your education, and they're going to say, okay, that is worth a certain number of credits. Okay. And if you have 75 credits, I'm just using that number, 75 credits that you have built up in your life, then that gives you X. Why not do the same thing? If you've been a migrant farm worker for 10 years or whatever amount of time, you have built up the opportunity to go to the front of the line to become a citizen.
Well, and again, I'll repeat, I don't know enough about immigration law or the realities of who is here illegally versus illegally and all that stuff. I just know that if we were paying American citizens what they expect to get paid, food costs would be double what they are. I mean, again, I'm guessing, but they're not going to be what they are now.
Well, I think that leads back to what we talked about in the beginning. A high school job is exactly that. It is a high school job. Nowadays, a high school job, there are kids, when I drive by on Mondays when I'm doing my thing, when I drive by one of the high schools up on the northwest side of town, you wouldn't believe the cars that are in the parking lot. And is that because they're driving mom's car? No, it's because they work at In-N-Out Burger and they make $20 an hour. I realize that people need a livable wage. Okay, I get that. But if you're living at home and you're living under your parents' roof and you're eating their food and you're doing everything else and you've got a part-time or a full-time job making $20 an hour, so your bank account is doing this, I have an issue with the fact that these are high school jobs. So when they started raising the minimum wages, I was a little bit against that because the bias was that I remember working for sub $2 an hour. Now, granted, it was years ago. I get it. Things change. But I think it's gotten to the point now where people are making, because I have a client's grandson that says, why should I go back to school? Why should I look for another job? I'll be a manager of an In-N-Out Burger in 5 years and I'll be making six figures a year.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't know enough to have a intellectual discussion about it, but I also know part of the issue is there are so many jobs that pay minimum wage. It's way more than high schoolers that have to take them, and those are the people. So that's where the problem is that how do you get jobs? Some should still just pay like $10 an hour. You need no education to put the fries in the oil and pour the fries out of the oil, right? That's a high school job. But
Right.
then the other ones where you're working for major companies and their stores and things like that, and you don't have an education and you can't go to college because you've got your family and you've got that whole issue that I'm not intelligent enough to argue about.
Well, but that being said, let's use QT as an example. QT to most people. Do you guys have Quick Trips in California?
No, but I get it.
Okay, it's a convenience store that really uses food as their primary thing. When you start as just a front desk clerk at QT, you make 36 grand a year. When you go to an assistant manager, you make 53 grand a year. And if you're hired as a manager down the road, you're making $123,000 a year. Yeah. And that's with no education. That's with working as a convenience store clerk, which, hey, more power to them if they can do it. But see, PB brings up something. I don't know the source on this, but the estimated total pay for a part-time student is $41,000 a year. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know. Well, and then now, and you know, talking about things that people think they should have, let's talk about college sports for a minute. Here's my complaint. Okay.
How do we get to that?
Well, here's why.
Okay.
Because college sports, up until you get to the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, any of the pro sports, were considered amateur. Okay. But what happened is the colleges started using the likenesses and the images of these players for their marketing. And do I believe that the student is owed some type of compensation? And I'll underline that word again: compensation for the use of their likeness. Now, whether that be free schooling, free books, free tuition, free an apartment while they're in college, that's compensation. But there is a player that's in the SEC that is a sophomore making $2.6 million a year as a sophomore in college. Yeah. Now, I see two problems with that. One, he's going to blow through that money when he goes out and he buys his Bugatti.
Okay.
Two,
your assumption, but go ahead.
But what is the motivation for him to continue? Because let's say he's smart and he makes $2 million a year, and that doesn't include endorsement deals with Nike and all these other places that are now allowed to pay them. What is the incentive for him to finish his education? So now you have a millionaire that if he gets hurt, what job is he going to do? And I think there's a big problem there.
Yeah. Here's your discrepancy. Farm labor, $2.70 an hour.
Exactly.
You're gonna have to work all day instead of 1 hour at In-N-Out Burger.
And exactly. And see, that to me is that when you're talking about the immigration problem, that is where the hypocrisy is that, I don't want to pay minimum wage, but Juan Pablo and his family of 15 can make $2.70 an hour, and we're upset that he can't make it. No, there's got to be a pathway. And I think that leads to what Rich just said, is that immigration to citizenship included an acclimation to the society of the host. Okay, I agree with that. Speaking of the language, basic knowledge about the country, and knowledge of social norms in the host country. Well, if you look back...
Hold on. I didn't put this up on purpose because I think this is a whole nother episode.
Oh, it is. It is. It actually is. But the only thing I would say is what he wrote right there was pretty much what every single immigrant back in the old days had to go through. They had to go through that. I mean, they had to become, and in a lot of cases they wanted to. But yeah, you're right. This is a whole nother subject.
So the last thing I wanted to bring up in terms of this, you can't have it both ways, is there's all of this, not again generalizing, but this made in America. We don't want to rely on other countries, all this stuff. But then again, with the price thing, are you willing to pay what it would cost? People are upset that companies are leaving, going overseas and all that stuff, where they will pay their workers a tenth of what we're paid here. And yet, are you actively going out and looking for made in America stuff? Are you paying the higher price to support the people in your own country? Or are you going to Walmart and looking for the cheapest version of whatever you can get
and
because
then complain,
it's your money and you want to save money?
Right. And then complain about it when it breaks. And that's the thing. I want to step back a little bit with what Tig Lilly says, that illegal immigrants will be prime targets to be taken advantage of. R.E. Stevens, and that's actually true. And that's another component to that whole thing, is that a lot of these companies that hire these workers know that, if they ask them flat out, in fact, it's a fictional thing, but Tulsa King, which is a show with Sylvester Stallone right now, uses this type of thing. And so what these companies will do is, these farmers will say, okay, are you a legal citizen? No, then you're making $2 an hour. What are you going to do about it? And that's a problem. I think that they need to go after the farmer. They really do. And they say, hey, this is still a human person that's working. So I agree with that. And the thing is, what PB said, we've never need Lee Iacocca more than now. But see,
that's and so to me, it's like we're now a global economy, I feel. Right. And so it's like, if somebody else can do it cheaper, then it makes sense to have somebody else do that. And then not complain that, boy, our jobs are going overseas, when you're, again, going back to the very first thing we talked about, you're on strike asking for a 20% raise.
Well, what Steven says, too, kind of leads into what I was going to say. Steven admits he watched Shark Tank. They used to suggest that entrepreneurs go offshore for cheap labor. No more. We're recognizing the value of U.S. manufacturing. Case in point, when my wife worked in the electronics industry, now that is one of the hugest industries that does everything offshore, almost everything. If they did manufacture all that stuff in the U.S., number one, you'd have the infrastructure issues. Would it be better quality? Yes, it would. But guess what? That $1,500 laptop would cost you $25,000 based on what. And that's the hypocrisy that I hate, is I make $50 an hour, but I don't want to buy stuff from a country offshore. Well, wait a minute. You can't have it, like you said, you can't have it both ways. You cannot say that I want to make $80 an hour, but at the same time, I don't want to pay more than $3 for this widget. Well, it's not going to work that way. Economics doesn't work that way. You got to be willing, if you want to buy American and you want to pay the Americans that kind of money, you got to be willing to pay the price.
Well, and it was, we saw that during COVID with supply chains, right? All of a sudden, when shipments aren't coming over, we were in a world of hurt. And I think people are like, why aren't we making this stuff here? Well, because you won't pay for it to be made here. That's why.
Right. I agree. And all of us are guilty of that. All of us.
Oh, yeah.
All of us. I mean, all of us.
Well, I guess. But I think most people aren't willing to admit that.
Right.
That they're going to bitch and complain and say, why, how come they can't get this here?
Well, let's face it. Those of us of a certain age, economically, as sad as this may be, we live in the past. I want to pay $1.50 for a carton of Pop-Tarts. I don't want to pay $6.50 for Pop-Tarts. Well,
I'll send you some Pop-Tarts, Dave.
Well, no, I'm just saying that 20 years ago, yeah, maybe,
right.
But
right. And I don't. Again, you would have to have a PhD in economics to probably explain this so most people could understand. But that's so cyclical, right? Everybody wants to pay more. You fight for more. So labor costs more. So prices of stuff go up. So you want to get paid more so you can buy more, right? It just doesn't stop.
Well, and that's the biggest problem. And it's so funny because, not to get political, but most people listening to me talk would think I'm fairly progressive. But no, I'm a conservative. But I'm a
No, you're a
conservative.
jackass, Dave. I know that.
No, but I'm a conservative with a soul, meaning that
Uh-huh.
there's a way to make it all integrated, and that's the part that drives me crazy. Is in the barbershop, it's amazing. We solve the world's problems a half hour at a time, without any bitching, without any moaning, without people disrespecting each other. Yeah,
You know, my barber has a sign that says it's unfortunate that the people that can solve the world's problems are all barbers and bus drivers.
it's just because I think what we're having right now is a discussion. There's where the problem lies. Nobody's discussing things anymore. They're arguing about everything and pointing a finger and saying, "You're this, you're this, you're this, you're this," and in the meantime, not a damn thing's getting done. You know, and I agree, and and what Veruca, your headline that says Veruca salt. Yes, Daddy, buy me that goose. It lays a golden egg. I must have it. You know.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Wait a minute.
I'm gonna crack open
I have
the
to address
Casamigos
this.
tequila.
I have to address that. Are you a communist? Pop Tarts? Yuck! Are you kidding me? Come on.
You know what? Though
Pop-Tarts.
I think we do disagree on this, Dave. Because if I recall, you like your Pop Tarts toasted.
No, either way. I go either way.
Okay, you go both ways on the Pop
Yeah,
Tart.
I go both ways on Pop Tarts. In fact, the strawberry Pop Tart with the icing is good either way. The key is to a toasted Pop Tart is once it pops out, you leave and go do your shopping and come back, because if you try to bite into it,
Yeah.
it's lava.
And it
it's
sticks
lava.
to your tongue.
I've had that happen actually.
Woof.
And if you're going to buy Pop Tarts, pay the extra money, buy the real Pop Tarts. Don't buy the store brand
Oh,
Pop Tarts. They're not the same.
Yes.
They're not the same.
I'm glad that we looped back to food, because this would not have been a Drinks and Dave episode with that. But how hard is that? I mean, Pop Tarts are not the most difficult things to produce, but any off-brand Pop Tart, it's the now what's the pop? I guess the tart part would be the stuff in the middle, and the pop part would be the
The icing,
outside.
maybe.
And the outside does have some flavor in a Pop Tart.
Yes.
And any store brand, it's like cardboard. I mean, they can't afford 3 drops of vanilla for that thing.
Well, I made the
Here's to you.
mistake. Yeah, here's to you. I made the mistake of one, because I love Pop Tarts. I really do. I love Pop Tarts. But, when you look at the back and it says, sugar, and it says, if you have to ask, don't eat it.
Don't eat
So I went and bought a keto Pop Tart.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, the cauliflower?
No. I don't know what the pop is made out of, but when you bite into it, it's like eating you know how Wonder Bread used to stick to the roof of your mouth?
Oh, yeah.
The white bread.
Nice,
That's what it
soft
tastes
and-
like. It's not crunchy. It's not, and the strawberry is strawberry in name only, but it's healthy.
Good for you. You know what's funny? Because we were talking about Coca-Cola flavored Oreos this week, because I saw them in the store, had to try them. And I told you, I'm almost always disappointed by the new Oreo flavors compared to the original, right? The original is either tops or almost always tops.
Oh, absolutely.
But the Coca-Cola one, I really enjoyed. But you know who hasn't effed up with their flavors? The Pop-Tarts. It's strawberry and the cinnamon ones. And I think, do they have blueberry? I mean, they got a couple others, but they're not coming out with new flavors every other month.
But it also must be said, now see, Pantea goes, do not try them. Well, unfortunately, the day after, Dave made a post about the Coca-Cola Oreos. I was extremely skeptical, and I wanted to prove him wrong, because that's our competitive nature with each other. So I purposely made a trip under the guise that I had to go grocery shopping. My wife did not know until this minute that the only reason I went to the grocery store was to get those. So I bought.
I applaud your
my lemmingness of being a lemming. So anyhow, so I go in and I buy. I've got the cart and I'm going around and I get 2 packages, because you had said you were going to go out and get another package. And then I'm walking around the store looking for other things, and I went, no, come on. If you don't like them, you're going to have 2. So I bought one. So I put it back and I bought 1 carton, 1 package. But I am such a marketer's dream that I get out to the parking lot and I open it up. And then I text Dave that I said, okay, I had one and they're pretty good. And he made the comment, wow, you're just like a junkie. because I opened it up in the car. And I have to agree. The smell is Coca-Cola. The taste isn't Coca-Cola, but it is a cola flavor.
Okay.
The only thing that I wish they had more of to get that carbonated feel was the pop candy, because I like pop candy. And as Sharon said, she ate one.
So
One.
here's the thing is, and I mentioned to you that the concentration of pop candy varies per cookie. And to get the full effect, you have to pop the whole thing in your mouth at once to get
Yes.
all the pop candies at once.
Agreed. Okay, I found
Now,
that
I
out.
will say to our barflies that 3 other people in our house have tried them, and I'm the only one that likes them, which surprises me.
Well, but we also came up with a unique way of eating these too, if you remember.
Oh, we have
correctly.
to. Yeah, I have to try. And I have
So I haven't tried. I haven't
Costco
tried it
too.
yet. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
But think about it. Those of you that enjoy rum and Coke.
Yeah.
So you take as you suggested, you take the entire Oreo.
Here's another vote.
You take the entire Oreo and you dump it in a glass of rum. You know
Yeah.
how you normally do milk? Don't do no milk. No milk. Now see, that would be gross. The Coca-Cola Oreos dipped in milk would be
That's
disgusting.
Right. I never even thought about that yet.
Right.
But there's a
But
cookie
in-
you would not want to put in milk.
But in rum, it's
Yeah.
Insta Cuba Libre. So what you
Yeah.
do is you go dunk, bite, eat the lime, eat the rest of the cookie, and you've got a
Now, see, you
Caribbean
mentioned
delight.
that, and I have never heard of the lime with rum. To me, that was always a tequila thing, right? Salt and
well, no,
lime
but
and
I mean,
tequila.
yeah, but I guess to make it a Cuba Libre, you could squeeze the
I
lime
see.
into the rum.
You got
yeah.
on the side. Oh,
Right.
yes.
So
Yeah.
before our
The-
next show next Monday, I am going to experiment with this. They're
Wow.
not-
Wow. Are we, you know,
Well, this
you
is
know,
like
Dave,
Coca-Cola
this is
Oreo
really-
hate.
this
It's
is
from
really
your family.
sad. You know what this means is this flavor is not going to stick around.
No, what it means is every single one of your family members is going to get a stocking stuffer of Coca-Cola Oreos.
If you don't want it, I'll take it.
Well, I've tried.
No, I've never. Have you heard of this?
No.
Chocolate peppermint Pop Tarts in the. I would
Wow.
peppermint. I would be down for. Although I don't eat the.
Well, that's like we talked about this once before. The green onion and sesame Doritos. Oh, they were the best Doritos ever made. Gone.
Huh.
Gone. But I've tried, now I agree with you. The original Oreos, actually, the Oreo Thins are the best. It's the right,
the greater
texture,
the cookie
yeah.
to filling ratio.
right. But I tried the ones that were also good were the, what's the cake that's kind of, that's kind of red.
The red velvet.
Red velvet with the sour cream frosting in those. Those were delicious. The vanilla chocolate ones, those were good. The peanut butter ones were terrible.
Really? See,
I didn't
I
like 'em.
really like the peanut butter ones.
I didn't like them.
They're kind of like Nutter Butters.
Yeah. But
So-
now,
so, you know,
do you
the
drink?
rest-
Do you eat the real Nutter Butters or the Nutter Butter cookies that are shaped like peanuts? There are two.
There are.
Yes,
Wait,
the
are
Nut-
the Nutter Butters? Are you saying the real ones are the ones that are made out of foam and pillow shaped and have the peanut butter?
the wafer?
inside?
Oh my
Oh,
God! I'm a
don't know.
convert. Oh, you got.
Oh, really?
They're wonderful. Oh yeah.
I might have to try that. But you mentioned Doritos, and the bummer is that Doritos keeps pumping out new flavors, but they're all spicy. It's some
No.
kind of fiery this, fiery that.
Well, I told you about. Did you go out and buy the cheeseburger one?
I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, it's basically a cheeseburger in a chip, but they use mustard, which makes it even better. It's wonderful.
Wow.
You know,
I wouldn't think you could eat a lot of those at one time.
Yeah, well, it
They'd
depends
be
on how much you
intense.
like hamburgers. Because I mean, what's weird though is, and it scares me that when they say it's called Dorito Midnight, the cheeseburger craving, and you can taste the lettuce. Well, what gets me, what chemical are they putting on there that makes you taste like lettuce?
Who cares? Oh my gosh.
And
Oh my gosh, PB. That's the drop the mic. Man, that was.
In
wouldn't
fact,
that
you know
be
what I'll do?
Smoky.
next week,
Adult. Yeah.
next week I'll do it live. I will have the rum, I will have the lime, and I will have the Oreo cookie. The Coca-Cola Oreo cookie.
I don't know, but any that would be almost nasty, wouldn't it? The smoky peat smoke and some kind of sugary.
Well, basically, tell you what, PB, to do the Islay Pop-Tart, do me a favor, take a little bit of scotch, a nice Islay scotch, pour it into an ashtray and lick. I think that's what it would taste like.
You know, I wanted to mention this to you. I didn't share it. I just popped open Macallan's Classic Cut.
I saw that.
It was so good.
Is it?
Macallan's to me is like an okay scotch that's costs more than it should.
Right.
The Classic Cut, I tell you, I'm bummed because a couple years ago they had it in Costco forever. Like people weren't buying this, I guess, for $99.
Oh,
if
wow.
I see it again, I'm backing the truck up on that stuff. That is good. Between you and me, Casamigos tequila now, buddy.
Oh man. That just does not. So you've had Screwball bourbon, you've had Irish whiskey, you've had
Hennessy cognac,
and then you're chasing it with tequila.
Yeah. This is pretty good, Casamigos. I haven't had it before.
So you know what you really should have done though? It's Halloween, and you could have gotten some apples and a big bucket and just pour all that stuff in a bucket and just bob for it. You know, it'd been about the same thing because that's what your stomach's doing, anyways. So, well, real quick before we leave, we need to ask because, as we all know, Thursday is Halloween. I'm curious if people still trick or treat because where we're at and where you're at, we never get kids ever.
Oh, if they get
ever.
trick or treaters.
Yeah. So if you're in the Barfly room, please tell us if you get trick or treaters and if you enjoy Halloween because Halloween's a lot different than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you got into a costume, you grabbed a pillowcase, and off you went. Now it's become a holiday. There's lights and there's blow ups and it's
if they can make money off of it, buddy.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, for years and years and years we haven't. But the house we owned is kind of set up with a courtyard in the middle with metal gates and then the front door. So it's kind of weird that they would have to like walk through the courtyard of our house to get to our front gate.
Yeah, but what a haunted house you could create. You could create a maze and scare people. Yeah.
But so I think we tried it one year, but we were like, what a weird kind of pain in the. So we just kept the metal gate shut, lights off, and then here we live on a hill and not a lot of kids around here, and so they're not.
So in other words, it's more like an expedition in Nepal if they have to come up to your house.
That's right. Yeah. If you got kids, you got to put out the candy.
Yeah. Well, we just had that car show, and it was a
trunk or treating.
Yeah, trunk or treat, and it was still $40 for the candy.
Oh yeah.
And it was 90 degrees, so everything became chocolate soup. Yeah, it was bad.
You go trick or treating, throw your bag in the freezer.
Yeah, that's what we did. So now we have a mishmash of different candy.
That sounds about right. We don't
want folks shut the lights out and go to Cracker Barrel. See, in my neighborhood, when I was growing up, you never shut your lights off. Because if you shut your lights off, there was two things that were going to happen: eggs and toilet paper.
Yeah, you don't see that anymore, or at least around here. There's none.
Well, you know why? You know why people don't toilet paper houses anymore? Because the kids have to spend $150 on toilet paper.
Shit. Now, if they get this stuff made in Korea, Dave.
Yeah, that's true. I always love when there's a run on toilet paper when Georgia Pacific makes 90% of the toilet paper in the United States. So anything that's happening outside the country really doesn't affect that.
Yeah. Well, that's the number one rule. Always be stocked up. Toilet paper you do not want to run low on.
Or you get a bidet. You do what Chad did and get a bidet for his commode.
I suppose. I don't like those Insta just screw on bidets. Seem very. There's a lot of stuff that happens inside the toilet bowl that's not sanitary, and I question the cleanliness of those things.
Well, you do realize that it's got its own water source, right? It's not like recirculating
the outside of it, Dave. Yeah.
That, you know, put that in our show notes, that maybe we'll have a special guest to talk
Bidet
about bidets.
discussion. Just, I haven't heard of that forever.
Oh yeah, window
Rich,
soaping. It's too much work.
Yeah.
Because, well, I guess window soaping now would be easy. Just take a big jug of Dawn and just.
I think they sell single Pop-Tarts actually for trick or treat.
Do they really?
Now that you can get the single ones in the metal, in the metal bag. That's something. Pop-Tarts, man, they are traditional, right? We've had strawberry ones forever. They've been in that little metal bag forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible for the environment. It'll never biodegrade. You can't throw it in the microwave like that.
Well, why would you want to microwave a Pop-Tart?
I don't know. I never have. It's
you
just,
put them in the toaster. You get that crispy, crunchy. Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah. All right. So to remind everybody, if you weren't here at the very beginning, we are switching to Mondays.
Yes.
Starting next week. And we will be switching to 5 p.m. Pacific. 5 p.m. Pacific. Just like. Oh wait, do we have a like? Oh, we do have a like and subscribe on our thing. If you subscribe and you go to the influencers are like, go to notifications, turn on all notifications, and you'll be aware of every time.
Right. And then one last thing to finish up what PB said. Did you guys get candy apples in the 70s? Yes, but they were never eaten because there was a rule in our house that we would go out around the neighborhood, fill our pillowcase with candy. Then we'd change our costume a little bit and go back out again and do another round. And while we were doing the second round, our parents were going through the candy. Now, what I didn't realize is the parents in the apples, they were looking for razor blades and crap like that. Nowadays,
and anything with peanut
fentanyl.
butter.
Yeah.
Oh.
But what was amazing is all the good candy would end up, your parents would say, well, you know, this isn't good for you. And so it became their stash. So they basically, talking about slave labor, they used us to get them candy.
That's a tax. It's candy tax.
Yeah.
Got to get them used to it.
I think this was a great show. I hope everybody, and I think that it makes us think. And I have to say one thing, and I'm not getting paid to this. Go see Conclave. It's worth it. It's definitely worth the movie. So I think that's it. So again, everybody, don't forget to meet us next Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, and that'll be our permanent days. And John and Yoko will be up in heaven watching us in their bed, in their fatigues on Monday night. So on behalf of Dave and myself, I want to say goodnight to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think we also determined that Dave and I are the only ones that like Coca-Cola Oreos. Sadly. So good night, everybody. And I hope that everybody has, and I'm stalling because I wasn't prepared to do what I'm supposed to do at the end of the show. And so now we'll say good night. Have a good night, everybody. Peace out.